Welcome to Sounding Board with Nick and Andrew Elliott, the You Are Not Alone podcast.
Oh, is that your new tagline?
Although, having said that, that's a bit alien, isn't it? Maybe it's the.
I was to say it's a bit X-Files.
It's the You Are Not the Only One podcast.
Okay.
Because I'm hoping. I listen to some podcasts, and
make you feel better because someone's
you're nodding your head because you're
yes.
not the only one. So I'm hoping that for some people,
it doesn't roll off the tongue, but I'm totally with you in sentiment.
So Nick, you've been away. We haven't done a podcast for a while.
No, I do apologise.
That's fine.
For having a holiday.
So you've been away. How was it?
It was great. It was very nice to have a week off. We went to Cornwall in the end. We should have gone to Corfu, and we decided a good month, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, not to go because the uncertainty around whether or not we would be able to go. I mean, that particular loads of other Greek islands have now been put on the quarantine list. Mainland Greece hasn't, but Corfu hasn't. So we could have got away with it.
But you weren't to know that. You could have been stuck inside for 2 weeks and all sorts.
There was even greater risk from Greece because they were doing random tests on people when they got off the plane, and if you tested positive, then you had to go to a government-run facility for 2 weeks.
A camp.
Well, indeed. So the rest of your family, so my wife would have to, or one of us would have to look after the kids.
What if you both tested positive?
Well, who knows?
What happens?
Who knows? And we're only going for a week, and you've got to make your own way back, and I didn't want that hanging over us, and it was getting stressful enough. So we decided, no, let's just do something in England, and if they lock down Peterborough, then we're just going to defy and we'll just leave anyway and sneak out in the dead of night or whatever. So we did Cornwall, and it was lovely. We managed to miss all the storms of the week previously. The weather was good.
I mean, it's almost like a different country anyway over there. Isn't
Microclimates and all this. Yeah, exactly.
They tend to think of themselves. They've got a different flag, haven't they? They've got like a.
Do you know what?
Like a black flag or something. Or
do you know it's pretty cool actually? That I didn't realise, and I had to look it up. But it's like the St George's Cross, but it's black and white.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And it actually looks pretty cool. I have to say, and they kind of do fly it with pride. I mean, and obviously I'm not. What's her name? Lady Nugie. Decrying the use of the flag as a nationalist symbol and all this kind of stuff. And obviously it's not nationalist as much as they would like to be their own nation, Cornwall. But it's tastefully done. It's not everywhere, but it's enough out there. And I kind of felt quite patriotic's the wrong word, but I felt that sense of belonging that it brought. And it was on ships and harbours and signs and shops and things like that. It was good. But they are a bunch of bedwetters.
Are they?
It's
masks everywhere.
It's bedwetter central. So not outside. Okay? I don't think I saw a single person wearing a mask outside, which is good. I mean, it was warm. It's obviously predominantly tourists, and I have no problem with the tourists. The tourists weren't the bedwetters, but they were abiding by the rules. I say that they even had, you go down a pedestrianised busy street in Falmouth, and there's signs up saying you've got to walk on the left. Okay, the pedestrianised street, big street, but loads of people, and you're in and out of shops. Am I only supposed to go in and out of the shops on the left and then turn around and come back on the shops on the right? It's utter nonsense, and people don't conform in that way. But they literally, and nobody was. Let's be very clear. Nobody was following that. We happened at a particular point in time to be walking on the left. But, we weren't exclusively doing that. They had people dressed up as like Elsa and Anna from Frozen. They had Disney characters going down the street enforcing the people walking on the left. And so they came up to us and it was like, oh, thank you so much. Talking to the kids, thank you all so much for walking on the left. It's just like, I can't...
I'd have turned around. and
yeah,
walked the other way.
Thank you very much, yeah. But that was a bit sinister. But the shops...
So they're ahead of the game then, because they're talking about COVID marshals now, aren't they? That's one of the
so
latest
much
things.
Ground that we haven't covered since our last lockdown specific podcast. But let's get into what they've announced today. But last week, Cornwall, masks absolutely in. I must have gone in 20 shops. We as in just in one afternoon, we're just going around shopping. And
did you wear a mask?
Not at all. I've yet to wear a mask.
Brilliant.
I will not wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. No mask. And we went in as a family. My wife has been wearing masks back home when going to shops, and
for an easy
she
life,
hates it.
presumably.
Well, and she would say to you that she hates wearing a mask. She hates not wearing a mask because of the pressure. Because of both of them have a horribly negative effect mentally, and I totally get that. I totally get that, and so that means she's going to the shops much less, only when we have to.
I know lots of people that are exactly the same. They'll wear a mask, but they absolutely need to pop to the shops for something for an easy life.
Yeah.
But they don't. It's on me. I order everything I can online. I get like vegetables delivered. I get my milk delivered. It's.
I'll tell you my journey on this, because the last podcast we did, when I was probably spinning out my doomsday scenarios.
Well, I was going to ask you, because I think the last one we did, you were talking about going to see your ophthalmologist.
I've not told you anything more about that since.
No, and I was going to ask you. So did you see? Did you wear a mask?
I didn't, and
you didn't see, or you didn't wear a mask.
Neither. I completely bottled it. And this is where, this is it. I've wanted to talk to you about this, and it's interesting doing it on the podcast because it's out there for all these people to listen to as well.
Yeah, because this is my first time hearing about
this. And I've been strident about this anti-mask and all this kind of stuff. Absolutely. Bit of Dutch courage, please. Pour me a whiskey.
You'll have to. You should recognise this one, okay?
So don't put me on the spot. Don't test me on the whiskey.
This is one that I know you've had before. Just have a sniff, and it's not a bad one. So can you tell what? Tell us your health, sir.
Cheers. That's either. I think that's either the Singleton of Dufftown, or that's Talisker Sky.
No.
Oh, come on. Oh, which one is it?
Auchentoshan, American Oak.
Oh, okay.
Another easy drinker.
Yeah, very. And the ones I'd chosen there were.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So you've had some Scottish cider. So how did? Because I think we did the last podcast. I think it was the day before.
Well, you probably was.
And you were saying
you probably was.
And you hadn't decided at that point whether you were going to wear a mask or what you were going to do. You were talking about having to. I think that the rules were that you had to. There was no waiting room. You had to stay in your car.
Wait in the car park.
Wait in the car.
Yep.
And
Phone them.
And the time before that, you had to wait for an hour.
Yeah.
Not in the car park, but obviously in the waiting room. You're not allowed to go to the bathroom. You have to go to the bathroom. So potentially you have to not drink anything because you're going to be sitting in your car for an hour. And
then the actual experience of being there, I didn't. The last time I went was before all COVID and everything, and it wasn't the most pleasant experience. In fact, I wish I'd had someone with me. I think we've said this before on a podcast, that I think in any medical setting, you need someone with you who's not going through it. You just need someone with you. It's just the right thing to do.
We talked about that when I was told to sod off by the NHS when my wife had broken her arm and she's in a state
But awful. Even something more minor, which this was, but they've got to put these eye drops in your eye that dilate your pupils massively.
Sure.
And bearing in mind that I can't see if I take my glasses off, but anyway, you do that, then you add this, and you add the light sensitivity on top of that, and it's not very nice. Not very nice. So I wasn't looking forward to it because of that anyway, because I knew that was happening.
And you're more likely to breathe heavily under those conditions as well, because you're a little bit nervous
But I think I've been coming across on the podcast as being forthright and blasé about it. But I don't know how much. We need to look back. I don't know how much I've been saying that I genuinely don't like the thought of wearing a mask, and I have been ready very much to say to anyone challenging me that I'm exempt, and I mean that absolutely truthfully, because the genuine thought of putting a mask over my face makes me really stressed. And so I'm going for the causes severe distress thing. And I completely bottled it. I sat for about an hour that morning, the next day, with my head in my hands, trying to work out what I was going to do. And in the end, I decided to just completely ignore it and not go. And I couldn't. It was going to take out my whole morning, but I didn't want to be put under pressure. I didn't want, even if they said, "Don't worry, you don't have to wear a mask." Well, they weren't going to say that. They weren't going to say that. Even if they said, "Oh, you're not wearing a mask." Oh, okay. Then there would have been a horrible pressure, and from everyone else in the setting. And so I didn't go. I wouldn't go as far as saying that I had a panic attack, but it's on that spectrum. It's on that spectrum, and so I feel I'm coming out all hot now. Just
Yeah, I can see.
Just talking about it, it makes me very uncomfortable. Now, I'd already been feeling uncomfortable going into shops not wearing a mask for the same reason I said about my wife saying it's just not nice. I've not been. My brother-in-law, I won't mention a name, is very much of the opinion of don't give a fuck and doesn't wear a mask, goes in, just not bothered what anybody thinks at all. And I am envious of that position, because I say it, but I don't mean it.
Yeah.
I very much care, and I don't like it. I don't like the looks I get. I don't like any of it at all. Now, after that episode, I was very much, well, I'm just not going to any shops. I'm not doing anything. I'm just never going out ever again, because I've reached this point with the masks now where I just can't face it. I can't face wearing one. I can't face not. And then again, I won't mention any names, but there something happened which threw everything for our family up in the air for about 24 hours about whether we were going to be able to see certain people. And it was, they got scared. They just got scared. And it resolved itself within 24 hours because it was nonsense and it was ridiculous. But for those 24 hours, it emboldened me, and I was like, right, we're going out, we're going on to all these shops. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm just going to be out there. And I turned into my brother-in-law, and I was like, look at me, no mask, no mask. So this is, I know this is a really strange journey that I've gone on, but it just represents the kind of roller coaster that you're being thrown on. So, and I'm giving you this story because this is the prelude to being in Cornwall as well. And in those experiences, I went to some shops. I went to Dunelm and places like this, some big stores. I was basically the only person not wearing a mask. But some other people, lots of people with it just like under their chin. Probably 50% of people with it under their nose.
Oh, I know,
I mean, so much nonsense. But don't you find it interesting, little sidebar, that it's not socially unacceptable to wear your mask badly. I'm not saying that there aren't people who aren't looking at them thinking, oh, they need to be wearing them badly. But there's no one gives you the evils that I've seen, and I've asked other people who don't wear their masks very well because they're just doing it tokenistically, whether they receive the same, sensation that I'm getting, which is being watched and being, targeted and all that. And they're like, no, not at all. If you just basically strap something to your chin, no one really cares.
It's a virtue signal.
Yeah. So anyway, I have been. So I got over that fear, and I've been going everywhere and doing mask-free things. We went on holiday. My wife said, look, we're not anywhere near where we live. We're not going to meet anyone I know. Part of the problem is the being judged. And again, it's not even being judged by strangers. It's what if you bump into someone that you know and you have to have the no mask conversation with them. And that's not one you want to have, whether it's about the state of your mental health, mental well-being, or whether it's because you want to take a stand. So she's like, I'm just not going to bother. We're going to go. I'm like, excellent, great. Let's go in all these shops. And as I say, we looking around. This is holiday shopping, in and out of some shops with the kids, looking for toys. They got given some pocket money by the grandparents. Let's go and spend it. In and out of shops. Must have got in 20 shops. Only one did we not get challenged. Instantly. And this one shop we didn't get challenged at all. And it was a tiny, independent toy shop. And we were greeted warmly. They were the entire shopping experience. We ended up buying something from that shop and nowhere else.
Of course you did. I was going to ask
And
that.
and it wasn't even because we weren't asked about the mask. It was because we were given a good shopping experience. It's because we were asked how we were. It's because there was little comments made about the kids and what they were looking at, and they were helpful. And so we bought things. That's how shopping works, and it made it fun. But I think it was noticeable that this was a tiny independent shop. You go into there's a lot of kind of outdoor pursuit type shops, your mountain warehouses and things like that. A lot of surf gear, that kind of thing, and instantly they've got a person there near the door saying, "Can you put your mask on, please? Have you got a mask? Would you like a mask?" They've got them there ready to hand out. I love the idea of them handing in their bare hands a mask. I mean, utter nonsense. Because my wife often leads in these shopping situations, she was the one who had to face a lot of these first time. And so she was just going, "No, we're exempt." Straight away. She did fantastically. And it's met with, okay. And they don't know what to do. But it's like they're only ever prepared to give a positive response. Because they're assuming you're going to go, "Oh, yes, I've got one." Or, "Oh, thank you very much." So they're ready to just go, "Great, thanks." And so when you don't, they don't know how to change their sentiment. So they still say it with a smile on their face. But we got challenged in every single place. I coined a new phrase. And because I've thought about this, because you know that there's obviously things like the Disability Discrimination Act and there's the Equalities Act, 2010. And being pushed to reveal a disability or a medical issue is obviously not right. That's in law. So the concept of them pushing you to tell you a medical excuse of exemption,
I don't think you're allowed to, though, are they?
is not allowed. It's against the law. And so I've wanted to go further than saying I'm exempt. I don't want to say I'm exempt, and I don't want to be challenged on it. Now I know that's the next logical course of action from what I'm about to say, but I wanted to not go in there flagging.
Be challenged, yeah.
But even specifically flagging a medical issue. And so I tried. This was a shop, a souvenir shop on St Michael's Mount. Fantastic place. You should definitely go there. Castle on top of a hill that you can only get to by causeway for a few hours of the day. Fantastic. Few souvenir shops. You only have 8 people in the shop at once. Nonsense. Utter nonsense. Person on the door, letting people in and out. 2 people come out. So they say to us as a 4, the 2 of you want to go in. So Caroline and my daughter went in. Me and the boy waiting. Next 2 come out. I'm standing there, no mask. Caroline has chosen to wear a mask in there. We'd got to the end of the week. She's just getting so stressed by the being challenged. She's like, "I'm just going to wear it this time."
Yeah, sure.
Going. So it's only me. Me at the head of a queue of people that are all donned with their mask all ready to go into this shop. And we're waiting. I'm not making eye contact. I'm looking around. I'm talking to my son. And then 2 people come out. And she says, "Right, do you want to go in?" "Oh, yeah, great." Again, I'm saying this without making eye contact. I start to walk in, and she goes, "Oh, have you got your mask to put on?" And I turned to her, made eye contact, and said, "Oh no, I don't wear them." and she replied, "Oh, okay," because again, they don't know what to say, and so they just accept.
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." And I did it with a big grin, and I went in, because that's the truth. I don't wear them. I am not telling you why I'm not wearing them, because I don't feel that that's relevant, and you're not an enforcement officer, and I know the law, and the only people who can enforce it are the police, and the police aren't allowed to ask you why. So it's a circular non-argument, isn't it? But that's my latest phrase is, "No, I don't wear them." And then if pushed, I'm going to say, "Are you an enforcement officer?" And I'm going to go down all of that kind of stuff. But that's where I got to. I didn't wear a mask at all, but it was uncomfortable. And they're all a bunch of bedwetters.
So I've had a couple of experiences recently. Well, I say no. One of them isn't myself, but so there's a shop that my wife goes to where masks are banned.
Wow.
Because
Tell me about this shop.
Because the owner is deaf. and she relies on having she relies on having to lip read people.
Yes.
She can't serve people properly.
Yes.
If they're covered up. So
Yes.
she's like, you know what? Nobody wears a mask, and
Yes.
you know they still do the. I think she probably lets fewer people in the shop than normal, but it's not a busy shop.
Any
anyway.
plastic screens and things?
I don't think.
What
so.
type of shop
I
is
don't
it?
think So craft shop.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, so it's just a retail establishment.
Just a small independent shop.
Shelves, products, till, desk.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. And yeah, so people don't wear masks because she needs to be able to understand what her customers are saying. The other experience I had was I went to, and I'm not going to name this particular.
You're going to tell me after this podcast. I know this because we had this conversation.
Oh
on
yeah,
Twitter.
I will tell you. So I had quite an amazing experience actually. It was.
Well, in relative terms, it must just make it even better.
Yeah. So I went to a local kind of tea and coffee place, and there were no masks. There were no plastic screens. No one was wearing a mask. Not the people behind the counter serving the drinks. Not people in the shops. Everyone was just kind of standing and milling around. Nobody was social distancing. It was almost like going back in
normal.
time. It was fantastic, and I remember just thinking, I'm just so thankful for this like half an hour I've had of being able to go and buy a cup of tea and not have to and nobody was people were kind of wandering in and out of the shop. Nobody was batting an eyelid. Nobody was saying, would you wear a mask? It wasn't it was just
So that is the complete opposite
amazing.
of the experience I had yesterday
Right.
in Starbucks.
Well,
Did you see the photograph I tweeted?
the last podcast we were talking about you not going to Starbucks because of Mermaid. So I bet you're not going to go for a while now.
The only reason I went was because it is the only. Having said that, this is not the case. I could have gone to the one in the country park or something like this. It was my son's last day before going back to school because they staggered the starts.
Right.
So he's going back much later because they're only putting a year at a time or 2 years
Okay.
in different classes at a time. So he's one of the last to go back to school. So he's had a few days with just us. And this was the last day. And we started going for a walk. I decided that while his sister was going to school, we'd get him ready and get out of the door at the same time. Get used to the routine. But we'll go for a walk instead. And we started going for a walk. And I was like, Leo, do you want a hot chocolate? And so he's like, oh yeah, and he loves the Starbucks hot chocolate. I hate it, but he loves it. He wants to go. He knew specifically that he wanted to go to that place. So we got on our bikes and we rode over there, and so I wouldn't have normally gone, but went for him. It was like a ghost town inside to start with, albeit by the time we were actually sat down and had found a place to sit, because there's like chairs all stacked up at one side, all these labels slapped onto tables and chairs and the kind of the high up benches you can sit up at, saying do not sit here, do not sit here, do not sit here. We eventually found a booth. There's like 3 booths at the side of the place.
Right.
Now you'll love this. Rather than just saying the one in the middle isn't allowed, so you can have the 2 at the sides. No. It's only the one in the middle that is allowed, and the 2 at the edges are. So utter nonsense. But we went in there. We were the only people sat in. The service was atrocious anyway. But everyone coming in was wearing a mask, got their stuff and left. There were people sat outside. There were quite a few tables outside, and by the time we'd sat down, they were all full of people, all drinking outside. But nobody wanted to be inside. And the signs on the floor, the social distance queuing type signs.
Yeah. 2 meters apart, or whatever.
I can't remember the exact phrase, but it didn't say any of that. There was a spot on the floor, and it was like, "Don't go any further." It was like, "Stay here." It was like, "Wait here." It didn't make any reference to the next place or anything. And it was basically, if you followed the signs, you would never get in the shop, because you'd just be at the first one and you'd never ever go to the next one. So obviously ignored all that. And then finally, got our stuff. By the way, I very much ordered to drink in, to eat in. Yeah, we've got a couple of pastries as well.
Takeaway cups, presumably.
Got given all takeaway stuff, even though we're eating. I don't know about you, but putting something in a hot dishwasher normally sterilises things. That's kind of what it's for. But no, nothing but disposable stuff. So didn't get the nice eating experience. We're there for about 10 minutes, sipping our drinks, eating our stuff, enjoying time with my son, and then the guy who served me comes up, and they weren't wearing masks. But the stupid plastic screens. I had to order 3 times because he couldn't hear me.
Well, yeah. So I've been in a couple of places where you got the plastic screens in front of the the checkout, and everyone just sticks their head to the side because you can't. They block noise.
Well, let alone that they if you've got to pay for something, they normally come around the side and hand you the payment thing. Oh yes, that's nonsense. So the guy came over and he was really apologetic. He was just a teenager. He's like, I'm really sorry. I need you to fill in this form. So he gives me a slip of paper. This is like a piece of A4 has been sliced like 20 times. It's like an inch tall, this piece of paper, with a single sentence about COVID, and then like 3 or 4 fields to fill in. And it was for test and trace, and it was name, date and time, and telephone number. So, and he hands me this with his ungloved hand and a pen, and says, "Can you fill this out, please?" I mean, obviously at that point there, I could have turned it all against him and said, "Oh, I'm not touching that. That's not sterilised. I'm not. What about this paper? I'm going to have to leave that for 72 hours before I sign it." Could have done all of that. But instead, he walked away, and I turned to my son and went, "So what name should we put down?" And he went and he said our names. And I was like, no. What name should we put down? And he started getting, you could see the cogs start whirring. And he said, "But whatever name we put down, isn't that the name we're going to have to put down everywhere else forever?" Like, he thought we were changing our names. He's 8, bless him. And that's fine. But in the end, so I said, look, he couldn't come up with it. I'll put on the spot. So I said, "What's your favourite name? Come up with a name." Couldn't do it. And so in the end I said, how about we do a superhero name? And so there's a program, parents will know the program Hey Dougie, it's on Netflix and stuff, but it's on BBC, CBeebies as well. It's an absolutely fantastic program. It's like 5 minutes an episode. It's an animation. I could watch them for hours. Okay, properly funny. It's good for the kids, but it's got so much stuff that's funny for grown-ups as well. And the characters in this are all kids, but they're all different animals. And there's an episode where they're all pretending to be superheroes, and they're like, animating all of these big kapows, and they're all saying their superhero name as they like burst through the sky, and it's like super this, and all these proper superhero names, and the final one just goes Stephen. And his superhero name is Stephen. So I was like, right, Stephen. And then Leo decided to choose the name Spencer. So Stephen Spencer was our name. I think my telephone number was 0712345, whatever. Put some random numbers down, and there we go. I tweeted a picture of that, and I've had not a lot of abuse, but I have had some abuse. The proper bedwetter type people who think we're all going to die as a result of people like me. But that wasn't quite as nice as your.
No, mine was amazing. Yeah, it was like going back in time. A year to having a normal, a normal cup of tea in a place where just everyone was relaxed. Nobody was nervous. It was like entering a different realm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a cream tea. Obviously, went to Cornwall. I ticked off the Cornish pasty. Got to have one of those.
Sure.
Cream tea. Got to have one of those. I must admit, it was the nicest cream tea I've ever had. The scones were amazing. But even the staff in the cafe we went to for that, there was just no consistency. They didn't have it together. We sat down, and then after about 5 minutes, I got up and went to the tills and said, "I'm really sorry. Is it table service, or do I have to order here?" And they're like, no, it's fine. It's table service because of COVID and all this. And you think, well, I'm here now. You forced me to get up here. Then we had one server who came. Have you had this experience yet? Have you been out to anywhere yet where they bring a tray of drinks, but then you have to take them off? Have you had this yet?
No.
I've been to a couple of pubs like this now where they have poured a drink. They have held the glass. They put it on a tray, and then they come up to you, your table, and they say, "You have to take it off."
Well, how did it get on there?
It's utter nonsense. But so it's a real thing, and I've had that in more than one place now. And so we had that. Can you take it off, please? And for just an easy life, you go, yeah, of course. You take the stuff off. But then the next person who comes, and it's complete opposite. So there was no consistency whatsoever. But at least it wasn't. It was a full cafe. Sat in an old English cafe with table service is what you want in that experience anyway. So yeah, it wasn't particularly different.
Yeah,
and everything outside, no one gave a damn. No one gave a damn. It's not like France. It's not like they're all masked up outside and the masked police are trying to get you.
Speaking of masked police, do you want to move on to some of the later things?
Should we catch up? Because I don't know whether you want to gloss over the exams debacle or whether you want to touch on that a bit. Because I know we've got stuff that's happened like right today, but we haven't talked about the A-levels or GCSE results. And I kind of think they're worth an honourable mention.
Yeah, I'll pour you out another whiskey.
I'm still going. I'm still going. I've been. To be fair, I have been doing the talking.
That's unusual for a sounding board podcast.
Oi. Well, do you know what? This next bit is going to be about modelling, isn't it? Because of. Do you want to explain how they came to the results and how they flip-flopped on them?
Well, they basically made them up.
But there were two types of ways of making them up. Teacher assessment, teacher predicted grades.
Yeah, so they had... And
a model.
So they had... And the funniest thing about this for me was that they did this in like multiple places first, where they had to U-turn. And then England just did exactly the same thing. So it happened in Scotland first, do you remember?
They U-turned first, didn't they?
So they had all the teacher assessments. And then they used an algorithm to kind of...
That's right, they didn't call it a model. They called it an algorithm. And then it dropped people's grades back. And then what they found was that it was dropping students' grades back dependent on where they lived. And if they were in like a poor neighbourhood, then their grades were getting dropped back a lot more than if they were in a rich neighbourhood. And it was all based on the previous year.
Yeah, and they were saying, well, no, poor people couldn't have jumped ahead that much.
Yeah.
It was like a 25% increase from or whatever, and it couldn't possibly happen. Therefore, something must be done. So it was like, okay, we'll use the algorithm, and then they ended up rowing back from that. And it could be that because teachers knew that these assessments were going to be used, they could have been artificially bumping up poor kids. But what that was never proved.
No.
So they kind of use the algorithm.
What teacher is going to give all duff grades to their kids in this situation?
I know. So both ways are ludicrous. Just get them in exams. Their kids are not going to be affected by COVID. Get them to do exams.
I don't know about you, but when I was doing my exams, I was about 2 meters away from everyone I was sat next to. I know.
They do it. They've been doing it for years to prevent cheating, not to prevent breathing on people. But anyway, yeah. So they had these they used this algorithm. They then had to row back because of all the bad press and it went on for some days.
Because of politics.
Because of politics, they finally rowed back. England just does the same thing. Oh, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
We're going to use a model, and it's just and got into.
Haven't they given them? Again. Am I right in saying that you get the best grade whether it's the algorithm or the teacher assessment?
Whatever gives you the greatest score. I believe.
And that's obviously because they did the stupid thing of not just going straight to the teacher assessments, not learning from the Scots. They had the algorithm do its thing, have people upset, but then some people, classic example of some people will have got a higher grade by the algorithm because the algorithm's weird than their teacher assessment. So best of both worlds. So
they don't. They've learned from the Lib Dems. They don't want to annoy students, do they?
Oh yeah, well, I suppose
because everybody wants a young person's vote, so that they don't
even if they can't even have it yet.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to talk a bit about how in general that's going to affect their future hiring prospects?
Oh, you mean that if somebody has a look at your GCSE results or your A-level results and sees, 2020,
how many people are going to put a different year? I mean, you've got to be smart to do that, I suppose. So you want to hire that person. But you'd put 2019, you'd kind of fake your age a little bit or something.
Yeah, or if you,
Don't worry, I was the last of the.
I think, like you say, if it was obvious that if you changed the year, but you could work out from the person's age that they changed the year, I'd be more inclined to hire that person for sure.
But I want to talk about. I suppose it's the consequences of the policy, of the change of people's behaviour, and how it therefore changes other behaviour. As someone who hires people, I don't look at CVs anymore. I have other people to do that, but I'm still involved in the hiring process. I'm going to want us to be sure that we treat those people differently. I'm going to need a different way of measuring their qualification. And now, I mean, it's not like I put much stock in the grades that people got anyway. Certainly not degrees. I have more. I hate using words like this. Faith in the quality of someone's GCSEs being a reflection of academic achievement than the degrees. But it's not like I was all about qualifications. But it's going to impact hiring decisions. Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And so you and I didn't go to university, so we probably treat people differently anyway because we haven't been to university. I mean, I don't even have A levels. You got a lot further than I did. I've got 5 GCSEs and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like. I'm almost, if there were two people, all other things being equal, if I had a choice between employing two people, one of them had been to university, and one of them had left school and had just kind of worked somewhere else and had a few years' experience, I'd hire the guy with experience and not the degree for sure.
I mean, I rarely that the person with the degree would have to have experience for me to even get to the point of even considering them. So that the experience trumps degrees literally every time.
Well, let's say okay, you've got a degree in 2 years' experience, or you've got 5 years' experience. It doesn't have to be experience in the job you're doing, just experience in the real world.
The University of Life.
Yeah.
The School of Hard Knocks. And the kindergarten of getting the shit kicked out of you. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice Blackadder reference. I remember when I was contracting at, would have been Compare the Market. It was a local contract, and there was we had a guy on, I think he was on work experience. Or he was just doing like a few weeks with us before going to do his degree.
Right.
And I think he'd done his A-levels in like computer science or something. Really, really great lad. Really, really bright. Really, really knew his stuff. He's one of those guys who codes in his spare time. Loved it from a kid.
That's the people I like to hire.
And I remember thinking, it's such a shame that we can't just take this guy on now, because he'd learn more in 3 years with the group of people that I was working with than he ever would.
So did they only take on graduates?
Because
some people do. Some people only take on graduates.
So.
Or they have a graduate scheme.
Yeah.
And that's how you get in. That's nonsense. So another model screwed us over.
Well, not us, but
from a hiring perspective,
from a hiring perspective,
you're gonna have to hire people as well. There might be a point where your organisation, I don't know whether you're hiring very many young people or whether these are people.
Yeah, no, most are young, to be honest.
Right, okay. So you're going to have this problem. You're going to have this problem, the 2020 problem, potentially the 2021 problem and 2022 problem as well, depending on how this goes. But yeah, are they going to be worth the paper they're printed on? Bearing in mind they're not based on any actual testing.
Yeah, I would argue that most qualifications aren't really worth the paper they're printed on anyway.
Yep.
I mean, so when I'm interviewing for software developers, I will give them a task, and
are you going to do your anecdote now? Your little phrase about Starbucks baristas or whatever.
Oh no, that was what was that? That was about being a Scrum Master. Yeah,
that's a software dev qualification.
Yeah, so there are other kind of qualifications in, if you're in IT. One of them is Scrum Master. And you can earn reasonable money being a Scrum Master, which is kind of not really managing a team, but kind of being supposed to be like a servant leader to a team. You can be a certified Scrum Master. And I was a Scrum Master for a while. I used to kind of do this role on a contract basis.
Not certified?
No, certainly not certified. No, So it takes, and the anecdote is, it takes 2 days to become a certified Scrum Master and 3 days to become a Starbucks barista. So that's the. I'm not going to bother. My years of experience from doing the job should be worth more. And if you don't think that's the case, then I don't want to work for you.
Yeah. In IT, a qualification is out of date by the time you finished it.
Of course it is.
And that's ignoring that experience trumps a qualification anyway. But it's just no point. Certainly, any qualification that takes any length of time, there's just no point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, think how often kind of computer languages and stuff change.
Yeah.
Every 6 months they're bringing out new versions with new protocols and all sorts.
Like the infrastructure changes as well.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, when I'm interviewing, I give people a test, and they don't have to do it there and then. I mean, they might, depending on what if I'm interviewing like a tester, I might say, here's a screen or something, and here's 20 minutes to go and go away and come up with like a bunch of tests. But programmers, right. I will give them say they're a front end developer. There'll be like a simple front end task where you have to kind of make a circle appear on screen, and I want to be able to click in this area, and another circle appears. I want to be able to drag and drop, and I want collision detection, all that kind of stuff. So it won't take them that long. And then
they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, and then we just say, and then at the end, do something else with this. So
anything you like.
Anything you like. Absolutely anything you like.
Okay.
And then they'll come to the interview, and it's just right. Talk us through it. Why did you do this? And then honestly, there are no wrong answers, but it's just like, what was your thought process? Because there might be things where that's not the way I would have done it, but you don't know until you interview someone. It might be a really good idea.
Might be better, yeah.
So you interview them, and you say, right, okay, talk me through your thought process and your answers, and how they talk about that, how they interact with you and stuff. That's another, that's how I do it. If it's, I did. I mean, so in the last I've recruited quite a few people in the last 6 months. Because of COVID, they've all been entirely remote. So I haven't had a chance to really pair with them. Now you can pair program remotely, but it's a bit awkward, and you can't. It's difficult to do with a group. When I have a face-to-face interview, the number one test is, can you work well with others?
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily concerned with how good your code is, because I can teach people to code. But are you a good fit within the team? Obviously you want a base level, but I don't necessarily need a genius. I want someone to work well. There's not going to be a keyboard hog who can bounce ideas off somebody. And
how do you do that remotely? I mean, I'm intrigued by this. We could turn this whole podcast into how to work from home.
Yeah, you can't. It's difficult to judge that remotely, because remote pairing is difficult. Sharing a machine, sharing a terminal, and chatting. But
forget pair programming. You're still managing a team larger than a pair. So how do you foster the kinds of interaction, the kinds of idea generating and innovation that you get from being all in the same room? How do you foster that remotely?
You take a punt.
Right.
There's no way of doing it.
So is it an X factor? Is it just something that a person has where they've got the get up and go to talk to people and engage with them remotely because they want to?
Yeah, and it's just so there was a guy who we interviewed recently, and he just came across so well in the interview, and my boss spent a weekend on LinkedIn trying to find people.
Yeah,
and he found this guy who was kind of looking for work, and he kind of he bounced a few kind of messages back. And my boss is the CEO of the company, so he owns the company. So he kind of approached this guy.
We've got some great LinkedIn hires now.
Yeah, so we have as well. It's fantastic. And so he chatted a few times, and this guy was really honest with him. So the first thing that went in his favour was because we wanted like a full stack developer.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm a full stack developer, but just to let you know, I haven't really done much front end over the past couple of years. It's been mainly back end."
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit rusty. I'm not. It's not me.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, well, yeah. Fair play. He's been right off the bat. He's been really honest with us. And he kind of said, look, I'm a little bit nervous about doing some of the front end stuff, if I'm honest. But I've done it in the past, and it's like, you know what? I'd rather you told us that now. That's absolutely fine.
That's a known. Well, it's a known actually at that point.
Yeah,
sure. The point is, I'm not going to be surprised by that, and I know where to focus some of your training or for you to gain some relevant recent experience in order to become the full stack developer of my dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we interviewed him, and he just came across so well in the interview. He wasn't overly confident, but he just had like an amazing manner about him. Really, really nice and polite, very smiley. You could tell he knew his stuff, and he's been great. He's been fantastic. We've had him for a couple of months now. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have your team? I know you were hired specifically to run a remote team.
Yes.
Before COVID.
Well, so this was my boss thinking ahead.
Oh, was it? Oh,
Yeah.
It was specifically this. So this is just good business practice. He saw what was happening.
Well,
Well, my question was, how many of the staff were already working remotely anyway, or was this a team that historically have been sat in an office?
No,
together?
this is a team that has historically sat in an office. Other than a couple of people that we had in Poland. So I had kind of a couple of people abroad.
Yeah.
Who were still, working. But they weren't.
Oh, they were employees.
They were employees.
Right.
But were working in Poland and had done for years. It's kind of 7 or 8 years. These people have been with us.
Okay.
Other than them, everyone else was kind of working in the office. My boss wanted to move to like kind of part working from home. Part working in the office. So one, you can save on office space. Two, it saves people money.
Yep.
And he's fine. He recognises that he was struggling to get talent within the area that we're based in. So he realised he was going to have to go further afield, be it internationally or even just at a national level. And if you're allowing those people to work from home, you've got to allow everybody else to work from home as well. So the people who are local come into the office, 1 or 2 days a week, and everyone else can kind of, you can work from home the rest of the time. So he wanted someone to do that. Suddenly COVID came along, so he's like, right, we really need to ramp this up now. So he kind of spoke to me, and I was employed like a week before lockdown. So it was like a week before my birthday, so it was just before lockdown.
Now, I obviously have a bit more experience, I suppose, of people that aren't devs or people specifically in doing IT jobs, because I think that they are different. And the idea, I mean, again, I don't know your team, but there's a dev stereotype, but there's a reason, and they often want to work on their own, headphones in, tapping away at 3 a.m. or whatever. Their working patterns are different, and they want to be left alone, and that the loner dev is not unheard of in any way, shape, or form.
There's one guy who works for me, and so he loves working from home. He loves working on his own. He's a proper. And he doesn't mind working with people, but if he's working from home, he's fine, and he just likes to be given a task and to get on and do it.
Yeah.
And he's very, very good.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I think working from home works for devs better on average,
probably,
than it does for others.
But this guy, so he doesn't even like meetings. So you kind of can't stand up meetings that last 5 or 10 minutes. That's too long. That's too much. I don't. He doesn't even want to do that. So. What he did, and this is the level that the good devs go to make their lives easier.
Tell me.
Right. So he wrote this piece. So the software that we
he coded his way out of the problem.
Yeah, he did. So our software is all about remote working and
collaboration
and collaboration. Whether or it's for collaboration, be it in an office or otherwise. It's very much for remote working as well. So he rewrote like an area of the system that's basically a Twitter clone. So you
posts and feeds.
You log on in the morning, and it gives you like a little reminder to say, just let everyone know what you're doing. So you can put on like this is what I'm doing today. Bash bash bash. You can tag people in it. People can respond to you and ask you questions and stuff. So now I can go in the morning and I just click on a button. I know exactly what my team are working on, and I can either ask them about it or they, I can.
And the point of that was the prevention.
We don't need the meetings anymore.
Huddle.
Yeah, so we have ad hoc meetings when we want. We have like probably have a couple a week where like Monday and Friday. This is what we're doing for the week.
I suppose things where you've got to tell people what to do, where you've got to change what people do. You might need to actually get people together for.
But not everybody needs to know that.
Yes,
we can afford to meet a couple of times a week, and everybody can let people know what they're doing,
Yeah.
or you can look at everybody else's feed and see what they're doing from a day-to-day basis.
So as long as they populate it, as long as they
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone comes on. They kind of they type in what they're doing today. I go on it, and say by 10 o'clock everyone's done it, so I can kind of find out what everyone's doing. I can kind of ask some questions and yeah, it's so he just coded his way out of this problem.
Nice.
It's brilliant.
No, I love that. I love it. Coding your way out of a problem is how I want every dev to operate.
Well, so there are you want like a proactive lazy person. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Someone who's so lazy that they'll build someone so they don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's what you want. So laziness in a developer, coupled with being proactive, is actually a really good thing.
I find that such a difficult mix of
because
skills.
you have some developers who are lazy, but they're not lazy in a good way. So they'll just do these laborious tasks because it's Whereas I want someone
they won't
to
do
think,
anything complicated.
I want someone to think, you know what, I'm doing the same thing every day.
Let's automate.
Let's write a script.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So yeah, you want the kind of proactive, lazy people, I think.
Yeah.
as
No,
developers.
I have had this conversation with people before, and I've not. Proactive lazy is not the term I've ever come up with, but there isn't a word for it. I mean, that's the point.
There's probably a better term somewhere for this type of person. But
yeah, well, that was a good diversion from. But recruitment's going to be a problem. I mean, and that's the thing. But we've never talked about working from home particularly, but that's obviously one of the things that people have been physically forced to do when they're not a key worker.
It's been so I've had to kind of not coach my team, but just kind of help my team get through it, because I've one of the reasons I was employed was because I've
the last group you were doing, the last team you were doing,
the last few have been working, not just working from home. They've been fully distributed teams. So there've been people working in different countries, different time zones, the whole shebang. So not just a team suddenly working from home. But what you tend to do with that is that you tend to start people off slowly.
Yeah.
So you start off, everyone works from home 1 day a week, and then 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And then you
You
kind of
do it
build it up. Not only that, you're still around to see your friends in the evenings, and I'm encouraging people, look, go out at lunchtime, go out and see your friends, go for a walk, go to the gym, whatever. Do all your social activities, because you need you need these transitions. You need to still have the interaction with people. So my team went from working in the office 100% full time to suddenly being forced to work from home 5 days a week and not allowed to see their friends in the evening. So it's a double whammy. So I'm having to kind of check up on them every day. Are you okay? Is everything fine?
I'll tell you one of my tips, and I'm pretty sure that it was not taken up by 100% of our workforce, and that was when most people went home, and won't go into the politics of it, but not everyone went home, but the people that were scared went home. I mean, that's just and we were trying to be we facilitated that. We gave people desks and chairs and computers and phones, and this wasn't just go and work on your bed with a laptop. No, we did this properly. But I said to them on the day before, I was like, right, when this happens, okay, the normal time that you get out, leave your house every morning, go for a walk, leave your house, and then come back at the time that you would normally be coming into work. And then you've got, even though you're coming back into your house, you've created a separation, and you've got exercise and you're outside and it's mentally good. But if you're used to a commute, you still need your commute time. And so you need to go. I firmly think that is an excellent way of working from home.
Yeah, so I recommend something similar to that. So there are two things about that, or there's kind of one thing in the morning. There's two things in the evening.
Okay.
So the main thing when this is in the morning and the evening is you need a transition. So you need a transition between being at home and being at work. Because I reckon you do this as well. I reckon you will. I bet you work from, because I've seen you do it. You work from home all over the house. So you'd be taking calls everywhere. You have your laptop everywhere. What you really need is, if not another office, look at the size of that spider.
Oh, that's huge.
I'm going to have to get rid of that, otherwise if my wife finds out, we're going to have to move house.
Have you got a shoe nearby?
So
that's fine. We can do this quickly.
We can do this. I don't want to kill it.
No, you've got to kill it.
No.
You have to. Are you going to pick it up?
I want to pick it up. I'm going to grab it in a glass or something.
Oh, you're not one of these. Look, you've changed, man. Do you not remember the spider that you squashed?
Oh, it's gone. Well,
do you not remember the spider that you squashed on your wall as a warning to all others?
I do now. This is.
You see, you've missed your opportunity now. It's run off into the corner.
Oh no! I've got it.
If it runs this way, I won't be responsible for my actions.
No, it has. It's coming this way. We're going to have to edit this out. I apologise to all listeners. It's a shame you can't.
You said, "I've got it.
I have now.
Have you got it this time?
I have now.
Well, why don't you just leave that there?
Well, no, I need to get it out. This is a big bugger. I think it's going to topple that glass.
You think this spider is so big that it's going to walk away?
Well, it's sticking his leg under.
I think no, it's fine. I think this is good podcast material.
Well, we'll listen to it back and we'll see if... Right, okay, so I've got it.
It's that season. It's September. Do you need me to open the door?
Oh.
Look
at this.
Is it struggling? I'm fine. No, I can see it from here.
Did you think...
Oh, that's horrible.
I don't know if people can see the size of the spider in
That's huge.
It's huge. Right, so I'm just going to throw this...
It's a house spider. It'll come back in.
Well, no, how do I throw it from the neighbours?
That's a good idea.
Right, 1 second.
I think it's... Well, I'll wait till he comes back. My policy on spiders is you kill them.
Yeah, but I don't like killing things.
My libertarianism only stretches to humans.
I don't like killing things I'm not going to eat. I can't remember...
Look, we were talking about
transitions. Right. Okay. So the first thing is you need a transition. So ideally, you want like an office, like in your garage or in like an outhouse or something.
Absolutely.
Second,
people don't have that,
which is fair enough.
Yeah.
So second to that, if you can have some kind of an office space where this is where I work.
Whether it's a spare bedroom or what.
It doesn't have to be a spare bedroom or just an area. It can be like an area of your lounge or whatever. But this is where I work. So when I'm here, I'm working. So you're in that area of 9 to 5 when you're working. As soon as you clock off, you don't go to that area again. That ideally, you can do other things as well. Like you can get dressed for work.
Yes.
So you can I've got my work clothes on now, therefore I kind of feel different. And the whole point of that is, so it's not really so you don't feel at home when you're at work. It's so you don't feel like you're at work when you're at home in the evenings afterwards.
Yes.
So you're not tempted to log onto your emails, and you don't, you need these kind of transitions. The second thing in the evening, and I found this because I started contracting in 2002. It was a long time ago. I got my first contract in 2002, and I was kind of working locally before that for a few years, but it wasn't particularly taxing on the brain. I then had kind of contracts, and I think it was on my first contract locally, which was a few years later. Because I've been commuting, I'd had kind of 2-hour drives sometimes, like both ways. So I was like spending 4 hours travelling a day. The best was like an hour on the train and like a half an hour walk or whatever. So I'd kind of commute to London or whatever, come back, and I come back and I'm fine. Because I've had this kind of I've had by this time I was having busy jobs, really using my brain, probably like writing code all day or whatever.
And you got the cool down time.
You got the cool down time. What you don't... I remember coming back and having like a contract close to home and thinking, this is fantastic. I can get up at 8 o'clock in the morning now, and I'm still in work by 9 o'clock. By 5:15, I'm at home.
But you're still in work mode.
But I'm, Julie's... My wife is asking me questions like, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, I don't know. And I can't... I've just... I've been making decisions all day using my brain, and I'm useless. I'm absolutely useless. So I just used to have to... go to the gym or read a book or whatever, or go for a walk, go for a bike ride, that kind of thing. And we worked out that I just needed this time, and it didn't need to be the same as the whole commute. It could just be like half an hour, but I didn't need half an hour to switch off, just to kind of to dump my brain. It could be playing the guitar for half an hour, or just doing something completely different. You know, you kind of need that time. You transition, and then it's like, you know what, I'm fine now. You can ask me what I want for dinner, and I'll be able to give you an answer.
You mentioned me. It is different when you have created and run a business.
I'm sure.
It just is. Especially when, I mean, it was the two of us ran, I'm not talking about you and me, I'm talking about my business partner here, ran the business for what seemed like a decade, but was actually 2 years in our respective spare rooms, just us. We faked a larger company, and we did everything.
Didn't you used to kind of create names and fake voices and stuff and pretend to be salespeople?
Fake voices. I'll tell you a funny story. This is a great anecdote.
I'm sure you used to pretend to be different people, though, didn't you?
I didn't, and this was the thing. I didn't, but my business partner did. So I was the techie. He's the salesperson. Now we did everything else in between, and there'd be times where he would do tech and I would do sales. Because that's what you have to do when there's two people running a business. But we did absolutely everything. Specifically, if he needed a different persona. A techie can sell, but a salesperson can't do tech. That's just not as acceptable. And so he needed another persona. He also the major reason for this. So he had a persona for being a techie. And actually we used the name of a friend of mine so that it was easy for me to roll off the tongue. And so now my friend is his name.
Right.
And I literally called him that. But he created a persona to be a salesperson because the previous place he worked at started bad-mouthing him.
Right.
And that was the real reason why he created a different salesperson persona for himself as well. But by the end of it, it was getting ridiculous because it almost became like a thing. It's like, well, who can I invent now? Oh, I'm the marketing manager. I am so and so, and all these names. I've got a couple of anecdotes which I think you'll find funny. One is that he would never put a different voice on for any of them. And I can see like the surprise in your face here. But he would deal with the same person as like 3 different people.
Did they ever notice that they sounded a bit alike?
This is what's so funny. Because he had his line ready. And this is the genius of it, is you've got to be prepared for that. And so when someone said, oh, but you sound like you and so, you just sound alike. His response was, oh, well, not him. No, he's really common. Which is a great comeback. And it makes you laugh. And it's the kind of thing that you would say. It's the kind of thing you'd be like, oh, not him. Yeah. A little bit of rivalry, a little bit of banter, or whatever. And that just dismisses straight away. No one ever questioned it. That was the only thing he ever had to say. The other thing was when my business partner's dad covered the phones for us once when we went on a meeting where we both had to attend.
Did he know all the personas?
Well, he tried. He tried, and we told him just to be himself, okay? And right, I don't think this is that terrible. I'm going to reveal his name. His name is John Johnson, okay? And it's funny enough that and he never thought it was funny that his name was John Johnson, but obviously that's a particular type of name when you've got your name and your surname in your surname as well. And we told him, it's fine. That's who you are. That's who you are. That's your name. Just say your name. But then when someone said, oh, who are you then? Because he couldn't quite handle the call he was on. I'm John. Well, which John are you? John Stevenson. That's literally how he said it. That's how he said his name. And so then after the call, he's like, son, I'm really sorry, I've invented a new employee. Why? Who have you invented? John Stevenson. He's like, oh God, we've got to create a whole new email account. We've got to do everything now for this fake person. I am pleased to say that we now have no fake employees, and we haven't for many, many years. That was the fake it till you make it years.
Brilliant.
But yeah, as a result of working at any hour of the day, and bear in mind, I started I did those 2 years before I met my wife. I was single for that entire time, and so that's what my wife bought into, was my work and life balance wasn't a balance at all. It's much better now, it's much better now.
Yeah, I was kind of winding up a little bit.
But I flit between work and home like a switch.
Well, so I kind of do as well. So I
have zero transition. My office is a 10 minutes walk. It's a minute drive away. So I get no commute time.
I mean, I can't. Yeah, so I don't have an office other than the one down the hall. But I will, so if my boss messages me at the weekend or at 10 o'clock at night about something that's just come into his head because it's his company,
yeah,
then of course I get into it. Or I'll kind of open my laptop and I'll do that. So, but I think when you're
much to the chagrin of your wife, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, but when you don't obviously if you built a company up, then then that's kind of a given. But even if you're just head of a department or you're
if you've got a senior position,
then you kind of
comes to the territory.
Yeah, you have to be kind of online.
Yeah.
For a lot of the time anyway.
Well, because you're there to your job is to make life easier for the guy who started and runs the company.
Yeah, and because I'm kind of head of IT, I mean a lot of my guys are pretty online anyway. So if I need something done as an emergency, I just need to kind of put a call out, and one of them is going to be having wired on coffee and coding
and probably doing
hours.
some work anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Do we want to move on to something a little bit more current now?
Yeah.
So as in the kind of the rules that are kind of going in place.
Right. So
with today there's the rule of 6, which just reminds me of the sign of 4. I don't know if you ever read the sign of 4.
Yes.
The Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
One of my favourite books ever.
Or the Seventh Sign, or
but it's kind of just sinister sounding.
The Gang of 8. Sorry, there's too many of these coming out now.
You can't.
We haven't covered a lot of the rule changes more recently, and that's because they've been easing, even though they've been maybe getting more complicated, but also because we just don't care,
and we've been ignoring them.
all anyway. But it's been when there was a point where I thought it was starting to be unwound, and that was where, and the reason I'm going into the history here is because they've decided it doesn't work. We've had the guidance and the regulations, which from now on we'll just call the law. And they've been broadly in line. They've been much more nuanced and detailed to the guidance, and in fact things like social distancing are in the guidance. They can't force you by law to stay away from people. So social distance has never been in law. But the numbers of people have been the same for gatherings and being in shops and whatever. And masks are law. Masks are law as well as guidance. But they diverged. There was a point, 6 weeks ago or whatever, where they diverged, maybe even longer than that, where they diverged. And the guidance said you shouldn't be in groups more than 6. But the law said 30. The law said we can only enforce from 30.
Yeah, and they had laws around households, so it was like 2 households can meet. Do you remember those coming in?
Yeah, but the law basically changed to gatherings outside of more than 30. Outside of your household.
Yeah, that was afterwards, I think, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, I think it happened slightly. But it doesn't
As I say, we got out of touch with it, whereas we were kind of reporting on the nuance. But the point was, he said, I think the British people, Boris, this is, can be trustworthy to make their own good judgments and yada, yada, yada. All that's out the window now. Now, its enforcement is going to go in line with the guidance. So they are, in fact, is this an example where, other than the little amendments they made, this is an example of it getting worse.
Oh, for sure. Although the way he spoke about it, it was like, we just want to make your lives easier. All we need to do now is remember the number 6. Doesn't matter about the number of households. It's just 6 people. It's nice and easy.
The number 10 tweet was all about simplification and ease. If it was about simplification and ease, then you'd go up to the number 30. It would be the guidance is going in line with the law.
Or whatever you like.
Or whatever you deem to be acceptable to your risk. Yeah. But now the law is going to be changed. It's from the 14th, I believe, of September.
I think it's Monday, whatever that date is.
Yeah, it's the Wednesday now. So it's the 9th today. So it's from next week. So we, like all of these changes, it's a statutory instrument, one imagines, because it's the regulation. It'll get dropped the night before or that morning. There will be no scrutiny whatsoever, no democratic accountability whatsoever, and it'll just get waved onto the statute book like all of the others. Obviously, you and I aren't going to pay heed to this whatsoever.
Well, okay. So what if you're a family of 7?
Well, you can rewind.
Genuine question. What if you're a family of 7?
We've asked these questions before. Back when the lockdown restrictions were worse, we had these conversations about whether you could meet up with people. Because do you remember there was the confusion over whether you could meet up with someone from another household, but you could meet up with one person, and then if it was a couple, that other person could stay away, and then you could swap, and then you could see them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But even though they were obviously going to interact with each other and live in the same house, you couldn't see them at the same time. It's lunacy. The same applies now for this group of 6. And if you happen to be a family of 6, does that mean you can't see anyone else out?
Well, if you're a family,
that's worse than they were before.
Well, no, that's my point. If you're a family of 7, you can't even go out as one group anymore. Yeah. You can no longer go out as one because it's all around this magic number and not about households and what have you. If you're a family of 7, you can't go out at the same time.
So I suppose we should wait.
It is absolutely worse.
Well, we should wait until the actual law comes out, because it might say household or 6.
And they've been talking about another couple of things. Curfews. I mean, this is like being in North Korea.
Right. So
10 o'clock curfews have been.
Can you give me an example of something they've said where it's been leaked to the press, or even just not leaked, even where they've said we're considering something, and it hasn't come in? Because I can't. No. I can't. And that says to me curfews are coming in. Curfews could all be in with us within a month. That's my guess.
Yeah, and they're talking about kind of like COVID monitors or
marshals. COVID secure marshals. Now this is the other thing. I'm interested in what the regulation is going to say, because at the moment the regulation is clear on what, in quotes, an enforcement officer is. Someone who can fine you, someone who can convey you back to your premises or whatever, because you are in breach of one of these regulations. If they are going to hand these police-like powers to people who've just been hired to be a marshal, whether they work for the local council or whatever it is, then that's really serious. If what Boris has looked at here, and I think he's looked at the whole government.
I think he's looked at East Germany 30 or 40 years ago, where everyone's telling on each other.
But if he's saying the police can't enforce this, so I need a bigger police force. If that's what this is,
where everybody is the police. Everybody could be part of the secret police, like in like in East Germany. So I've had a couple of thoughts on this. One of them is that in that it's getting like it's your typical kind of socialist, communist. You don't know
police state.
It's a police state. You don't know
fascist. All of them.
You don't know who's watching. Who's going to turn you in.
Yeah.
The second thought was,
I think I was reported to the police over Twitter for my Starbucks appearance.
Brilliant.
But the only reason I know that is because someone replied to a tweet that was blocked from me. So I get the tweet in the thread.
Right.
But it's like it doesn't work because it doesn't show me who it's replied to.
Log onto the sounding board account and check it.
I'll have a check. I've asked this guy to tell me what it was. But when I tried replying to this person, Cambridgeshire Constabulary was on the list as well, which obviously I didn't. I didn't find. So I think someone has reported me.
Well, they probably haven't. What they've done?
Well, they've tweeted.
They've tagged Cambridgeshire Constabulary. So the first thought was, this is just getting like they're going to have the Stasi everywhere. It's getting like North Korea. My second thought was, why don't you and I volunteer for these roles?
I was wondering about that.
And then we can just let everybody off. because it's a sort. It's a bit like I remember someone
Infiltrate.
Well, so not yeah. It was a bit like I remember thinking about jury service.
Yeah.
Because I was very against jury service. For a long time.
Past tense.
And now again, this is a similar argument. Somebody said, look, if you get the opportunity to do jury service, take it. And then any victimless crime that there is, you find that person guilty, regardless of what it is, whether it's
guilty,
not guilty. Sorry.
News just in, sounding board fans.
You find that person not guilty. So whether it's like not having a TV license or smoking weed in their back garden or whatever, if there's no victim, you just, regardless of what evidence is against them, find that person not guilty. And I thought that was a compelling argument. And the same way,
even though you're being forced to do it,
you and I could be
COVID secure marshals.
COVID secure marshals, and we could just not do anything and see how long we get away with it, and just say, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to enforce anything. Go, fill your boots, go for your life. I might only be here for a day because I'm going to get fired, but just enjoy yourselves, live your lives.
Go round to the local supermarkets and encourage people to take their masks off.
Yeah, we could have we might only be in the job for a day.
I'd love to know how long it would take before we got reported.
Yeah. So that was my second thought about that, is that we should all be all libertarians should be COVID marshals.
Lockdown skeptics.
Yeah, lockdown skeptics should volunteer to be COVID marshals. And we should just
great idea.
Take it down from the inside. You've got experience in this from your £3 that was spent a few.
Oh, my what's the term? When entryist.
Tokenism. Is it? Oh no, entryism. Yeah, it's a form of entryism.
I pay £3 to vote for Jeremy Corbyn to be leader of the Labour Party. There, I said it.
So yeah, that was my second thought about that.
Are we in a police state yet?
Have
you seen some of the arguments on Twitter?
Well, the number of videos I've seen of people being harassed for not wearing masks.
That guy on the tube or the train.
Yeah, even when they're saying, "Look, I've got a medical condition," and he's getting handcuffed and manhandled and
pepper sprayed.
I'm surprised he didn't punch the police officer in the face, to be honest. Yeah. Because if somebody got that close to me and was threatening me, I think my instant reaction would be to nut someone.
Well, he reacted.
He reacted, considering the amount of abuse he was taking from that officer.
I agree, because he wasn't violent.
No, not at all.
But he was being forceful in trying to get the guy off him.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, entirely appropriate.
But he was still... The amount of force he was using to keep the guy off him
was entirely appropriate.
Was minimal. He could have done a lot worse.
In fact, what I liked was he did an incredibly good job at keeping him off him.
But he kept sat down.
Yes.
I mean, if that was me, I would have just stood up and just pushed the guy away from me.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that you'd have been then committing a crime. And so...
But I think I wouldn't have been bothered about that at the time. It would have just been
I'm sure.
Get off me, you're breaking the law, you're not allowed to challenge me on this.
Yeah.
I'm probably bigger than you anyway. And I would have just, as a big guy, you tend to just kind of stand up and use your stature. Use your stature to kind of, to diffuse these situations.
To diffuse or inflame these situations. You see, I've had a couple of stupid conversations on Twitter, as it's Twitter, about the whole police state thing.
A few bad apples.
But this, people saying it undermines your argument if you say this is like a police state. And it's like...
But what if it is a police state?
Well, but also... Please, and this is why I'm asking you, please tell me what line you cross.
Yeah, so because, when am I allowed? At what point am I allowed to say it's a police state?
Well, forget whether it's allowed or not, but let's just try and put some objective measures around what a police state might be. Because curfews, I mean, house arrest.
At the point when 65 million people are put up, well, no, we were. Basically,
there weren't people outside of your house turning you around and putting you back in again.
No, but
and you were allowed out to exercise.
I think being allowed out for a few tiny reasons. There were like a handful of reasons you were allowed outside your house.
Playing devil's advocate,
right? So yeah, that very much is a police state.
It was house arrest with exceptions.
I mean, and you could like the rules now, for example, are you can't meet up even on private property in groups of more than 6. So if you have a household of 4 and a household of 4, so take the situation that I'm in now, where I effectively live in like a little mini cul-de-sac with my next door neighbour.
Yes.
So there's a drive that
you have a shared driveway.
We have a shared driveway. I mean, so technically I own it, but it's a shared driveway.
Right.
Yeah, they have a right of way. You can fit like half a dozen cars in there. It's got a reasonable area, but I can
stick a couple of gates on there.
Yeah, exactly. It could be our own gated community if we wanted to. But I can walk out of my house into my neighbour's house without
private land.
On private land. Okay, so it's all owned by myself or my neighbour.
Yes.
Let's just say there are 2 households of 4, and one household of 4 walks off of one set of private land onto another set of private land. We are now breaking the law. There is no such thing as private property. So yes, it is a police state.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no argument around it.
What are the other aspects? I mean, curfew is definitely one of them, and the way that police are behaving.
The whole lockdown. Lockdown is an action of a police state.
Up until, would you consider that we were still in lockdown even up until this latest change? How do you define lockdown?
Yeah, because you're not. You can't. It's if you can't meet in as many
house in as many people
as you like on your own private land, then it's a police state. It doesn't matter if the number is 1,000.
So the term lockdown, I mean, it's a terrible term. But lockdown applies more to everyone staying in their homes as a word. But from that moment, we were a police state. So I suppose in that respect, you can say it's easy to say that we're still a police state. I mean, I've been saying we're still in lockdown because there are certain businesses that just are not allowed to run, and technically speaking, the number of people allowed in your property or to gather is still very, very low. So I've been saying we're still. People say, "Oh, when we were in lockdown," it's like we're still in lockdown. That's been kind of my argument. I don't know what you think about.
Yeah, no, people have been saying the same thing. So I'm saying, "Oh, yeah, well, what do we get locked down to?" I'm like, "Well, we're still in lockdown 1."
Yeah.
But my point with this again is that, and we've talked about this, about all the legislation going through on statutory instruments without any kind of scrutiny I mean, I know you and I think about democracy and elections anyway, but there's been none of that anyway. These laws have just been passed. So my point was always, up until now, in that we've always been a police state and we've always been in this kind of authoritarian regime. They've just chosen not to use those powers. They've always had them. They didn't need to do anything. They didn't need to have an election to do this, or any kind of vote or anything. They've just stuck them in place.
Am I getting this right? We've not had rights. We've been given permissions.
Yes, that's very much what it is.
Yeah, and they just chose to.
The state has always had this power. The power that they have now is not a new thing. Nothing. All they've done is they've just chosen to stick in whatever arbitrary laws they wanted. They've always had the power to put in these laws.
Yeah. We're governed. Right? I mean, am I just trotting out tropes now? We're governed by consent.
Are we?
What I'm saying is,
because that was Jacob Rees-Mogg's argument.
Hear me out. If enough people withdraw their consent, they can't govern us. Correct. I'm not saying that an individual can withdraw their consent and that can be effective, because it can't. But if enough people, this is why he wants his larger army to enforce the lockdown. If enough people say no, then the state is rendered.
I don't think that means we're governed by consent.
Okay.
I don't think that's what big.
Right.
Big
so my second statement is right. In that if enough people rebel,
we're governed because we don't overpower the current government.
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that you consent to it.
But don't you think that people are consenting? And I'm talking here about all the people you talk to who go, "Oh, I'm just wearing a mask for an easy life."
Yeah, absolutely. And
they are going along with it. They're going along with social distancing. They're going along with not going into people's houses and the rule of 6 or 30 or whatever else you want to get. That is consent.
Yeah, but this is why I don't like democracy, because if a certain number of people consent, then everybody consents.
Yes.
Whereas that shouldn't be the case at all. If you want to consent to this idiocy, then fine for yourself. But I don't want you to consent for me. And then this is. I remember Jacob Rees-Mogg, because I used to quite enjoy listening to the Mogcast podcast when he was. I think it was like a Conservative Home thing, wasn't it? Because he's quite an interesting guy, and I used to.
He's eloquent. He's witty. He's sharp.
Yeah, I used to like listening to him talk, even if I didn't really agree. But it got to the point where he was talking about saying. The reason that the lockdown work is because so we govern by consent in this country, and if the British people didn't want to be locked down, they wouldn't be locked down. Because we only arrested a couple of thousand people. That means it's a success. It's like, well, hang on, those 2,000 people haven't been consenting.
They specifically didn't.
Yeah,
that's why they've been caught.
They did the opposite of consenting, and now you're arresting them. So it's not.
But that's classic person. That's a classic collectivist argument.
Of course it is.
That's someone who's saying the British people, and they're using a group term, and they're ignoring the individual.
Which is why I hate all these rules and regulations around lockdowns. What should you really do if you have an infectious disease? Well, you protect the vulnerable, or you. Okay, so now in fact I'm going to go further.
What do you mean by you?
I'm going to go further than that. You don't protect the vulnerable, because that sounds like you're imposing something on them.
Exactly.
You help the vulnerable to protect themselves if they want it.
Yes.
That's what you do. So It might be that you're vulnerable, but you've only got 6 months to live anyway, so you just want to live your life, and that you don't want to be protected.
The point is,
so you help people who want help and want to be helped protected.
You give them a choice.
You give them a choice, and everybody else you just allow to live their lives.
Yeah.
So the average age.
Can you imagine being in a care home, being 90 odd years old, but still having all your faculties, and you know that you've only got months to live.
You want to go out on a massive bender.
But it's 2020. You know you're not leaving your bed.
Yeah.
Okay? But all you want to see is your family, and you're told there's this new virus going around, and it could be really, really deadly, specifically really, really deadly to people like you. Okay? And so you've got a choice. Either you see your family, but you might die, or you die, or you spend the next 3 months on your own and die. Which one are you going to choose?
Or you might have had enough, you're in pain, and you might quite like to get this virus and just pop your clogs and think, you know what, this is fine. I don't care if I get this or not.
Yeah.
Just please let me see my family.
But even just giving someone the choice of being able to see their family or not, and as a result, you have a risk of dying, but there's a certainty that is against the certainty
of dying anyway.
Of dying alone.
But so the average age of someone who's died from COVID-19
is above life expectancy. That is one of the best facts that there is throughout this shamdemic.
So just punish. It's collective punishment.
Yes,
it's collective punishment. It's pure collectivism, saying that, well, a couple of 90-year-olds have died, therefore every 25-year-old needs to stay inside.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
No, I think we're on record.
We may have intimated that in the past.
Is there anything else that's come out?
No,
this week.
I think we've gone on long enough, if I'm honest.
Sorry. Well, let's call it there.
Spider catching and all sorts.
I think that was a good diversion. Look. If people were getting bored of that, they'd hit the little button that says skip 30 seconds on their podcast, which I'm not advocating you do all the time on the Sounding Board podcast, but they might have wanted to do that in that instance.
Anyway, thank you for watching and listening to Sounding Board. We're on YouTube, we're on iTunes, we're on all your favourite podcast apps. Please share if you get the chance. If you can do anything, so we don't want your money. Just share this with your friends or your family or people you want to annoy, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks very much.